In this tutorial, we are going to set up a timer to measure the amount of time a user spends within an activity. A timer is useful in many situations to see how people are engaging with learning content and can inform learning analytics. We are going to create an xAPI statement that reads, "The actor launched the knowledge check scene." This time, though, we add a result that measures the amount of time the actor spent on the scene. As you can see, we are in our Great White Shark project, and I've set up a second scene, which is a knowledge check scene. This knowledge check timer that we are going to set up is timing the amount of time a user spends on this slide. We start the timer when the user enters the scene. Let's step through the scene. The instruction says, the great white shark will glide across the screen. Before it disappears on the left-hand side, you need to answer 3 questions about it. If you don't do it in time, you become shark bait. Enjoy. Okay, so these are the 3 questions. Question 1. Orcas are natural predators of great white sharks. What organ in the shark's body do they enjoy the most? Let's choose the heart. That was wrong. A female great shark can live up to 40 years. How many years of these possible 40 years is she sexually mature? I would say about 10. No, it's actually 7. Question 3. Which one of these 3 countries has not declared the great white shark as endangered? I'm going to choose South Africa. That is correct. So at this point in time, the time stops as we enter the next scene. How do we set this up? First, let's look at the xAPI syntax. We have the verb called launched that we will use, and we are going to use the scene as the object. We are also going to use a result with a slide duration variable. We have a variable in the scene with which we are going to identify which scene is being launched. To make that work, I set up a default scene variable with scene name here. We will change this string value with the actual scene that is being launched. The other 2 variables we have are the slide duration variable, which is the time value we want at the end, which is currently set as an empty string. We have the slide timer variable that starts at 0 or 0. We will convert the slide timer variable into the slide duration variable. More on that later. Okay, let's see how we set this up. Just as a recap, we send the first statement in the project when this first scene is being launched. We populate the scene variable with the first scene value, and then we send the statement. This is sent on scene load. So once the scene loads, the xAPI statement is sent. The second scene we'll call the knowledge check scene, but first, let's set up a timer. For that, we need to create a timeline. We call the timeline x_timer. We show the timeline, and here we want to adjust the timer value by 1 every second. So we are going to run an expression with which we are going to update the slide timer variable by 1 every second. Okay, the slide timer is being adjusted by 1. It will count in seconds because this happens every second. Every time it reaches this point in the timeline, we want to restart this specific timeline so that we can keep on counting. Okay, so here we have a timer setup with minimal code. When do we want to trigger this timeline to start the timer? We want to start this timeline on scene load, which means when a learner launches the scene, the timer will start counting. Okay, the other thing we have to do is change the timer value, that is currently in seconds, into a slide duration value xAPI can read. So we have to convert the amount of seconds that is being counted here into the ISO format, because learning record stores like to see time duration in the ISO format. The ISO format looks something like this. The P is short for period, or in our case, duration. T is the time indicator. H represents hours, M represents minutes, and S represents seconds. I use this function that I will put in the documentation for someone to use. Depending on the amount of seconds that is in the timer, we are converting it into hours, minutes, and seconds, or minutes and seconds, or just seconds. We pass the result of this calculation into the slide duration variable. I just want to say thank you to Devlin Peck for this code. When do we send the statement with the timer result? We want to send it on scene unload, which is different than the first scene statement, which was sent on scene load. We send the statement on scene unload because it is only then that we have the slide duration value calculated. I'm not going to send the statement or set it up here because I have to set up a custom behavior first. Hype's custom behaviors can be very handy to group a series of actions together. Let's create the custom behavior. We'll call it slide duration. The first thing we need to do is we need to stop the timer timeline. There we go. We also want to name the scene. So we choose set custom data. We name the scene variable knowledge check 1. The other thing we need to do is we need to run the function called convert to ISO, because we need to convert the amount of seconds into the ISO time standard before we send the statement. Then we can run the statement. We grab the verb, which is launched. We grab the scene, which will be knowledge check 1. And for the first time, we are going to pass a result slide duration into the xAPI statement. After we've set this up, we have to trigger the custom behavior, which is the slide duration custom behavior. Okay, so we will send the statement on scene unload. Let's preview what we have done. We open the console. There we are. We have the first xAPI statement that was sent. The user launched the first scene. So if we go to the second scene, the knowledge check scene, we start updating the slide timer. There we go. 0, 1, 2, 3. Let's start the knowledge check. Orcas are natural predators of great white sharks. They think the liver is a delicacy. Question 2. Female white sharks are sexually active for 7 years. You can see the slide timer is still counting there at the bottom. And South Africa has not declared the great white shark endangered. There we go. We go to the next scene and there is our statement. The user launched knowledge check 1 and spent 43 seconds answering the knowledge check. We've set up a timer duration in an xAPI statement.